Hey there. Thanks for stopping by. Like an old friend slipping quietly into a dim tea house on a gloomy afternoon. Today, we're stepping back in time to a place once hailed as the Celestial Empire, Imperial China. But hold on. Don't picture the grandeur of the Forbidden City or the dazzling silk robes from period dramas. What you're about to hear is far from that. It's darker, harsher, and painfully real. This is a story about everyday life under the Chinese Empire. A world where a single wrong glance could cost you your life. Where common folk lived under constant surveillance, in hunger, and under brutal laws so extreme that even modern ears might flinch. Trust me, if you somehow woke up in that era, you probably wouldn't last a single day. If you enjoy stories that strip away the fairy tales and show history as it really was, feel free to like or subscribe, only if you truly want to stick around for more. Where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are? Now, turn off the lights, let a fan whisper in the background, and join me as we step into a raw slice of history, where golden thrones were built on the bent backs of the forgotten. Imagine waking up to the soft glow of red lanterns casting flickering shadows on the walls of a dimly lit room. The air is thick with the scent of incense, mingled with the less pleasant odors of unwashed bodies and stale air. As you sit up, the realization dawns. You're not in your cozy bed anymore. Welcome to Imperial China, a world where grandeur and oppression walk hand in hand. The imperial palaces, with their intricate carvings and golden roofs, might suggest a life of elegance and refinement. But beyond these walls lies a society bound by rigid hierarchies and unforgiving traditions. Here, the emperor, deemed the son of heaven, holds absolute power, his authority justified by the mandate of heaven. Yet, a single misstep, a failed harvest, a natural disaster, could be interpreted as a sign that he has lost this divine favor, leading to rebellion and the rise of a new dynasty. Beneath the emperor are the scholar officials, products of the grueling imperial examination system. These men have dedicated their lives to mastering Confucian texts, enduring years of study and countless failures, all for a chance to serve in the bureaucracy. Their status is revered, yet their lives are far from luxurious. Then there are the peasants, the backbone of the empire. They toil endlessly in the fields, their labor essential yet their lives expendable. Despite their importance, they live in poverty, their days dictated by the demands of landlords and tax collectors. Artisans and craftsmen, skilled in creating everything from delicate porcelain to intricate silk garments, occupy a lower rung in society. Their contributions are tangible, yet they lack the prestige afforded to scholars. Merchants, despite their wealth, are viewed with suspicion, their pursuit of profit seen as morally dubious. Women, regardless of class, face a life of subjugation. From a young age, girls undergo the painful practice of foot binding, their feet broken and bound to achieve the coveted lotus foot. Marriage is not a matter of love but of family alliances, and a woman's worth is often measured by her ability to bear sons. Even daily routines are steeped in ritual and hierarchy. Filial piety dictates that children show unwavering respect to their elders, often bowing multiple times a day. Meals are silent affairs, consumed with deference and without indulgence. Hygiene practices are rudimentary at best. Bathing is infrequent, and lice are a common nuisance. Medical knowledge is limited, and superstitions often guide treatments. The legal system is harsh and unforgiving. Punishments range from public beatings to exile, and justice is swift, often brutal. The concept of individual rights is virtually non-existent. The needs of the state supersede all. So, are you still eager to journey back to this era? While the allure of ancient China is undeniable, it's essential to remember that behind the silk robes and majestic palaces lies a world of hardship and strict conformity. As we delve deeper into this society, prepare to uncover the complexities and contradictions that defined life in Imperial China. In this grand historical theater, each person is cast not by talent or will, but by birth. The curtain rises on a society where everyone knows their place, and stepping outside your role can be deadly. Welcome to the Imperial Playhouse, where you don't audition for your part, you inherit it. At the pinnacle of this cast is the Emperor, the Son of Heaven. He is more than just a king. He is the breathing embodiment of divine will, cloaked in silk, so fine it shimmers like light itself. He speaks rarely, but when he does, the words fall like thunder. His power is absolute, until it isn't. One unlucky flood, one tremor in the earth, and whispers begin. Has heaven withdrawn its favor? The Emperor's greatest enemy isn't rebellion, it's symbolism. Because in this world, a crop failure isn't just bad luck. It's a sign. And when signs point away from the throne, dynasties fall. Now, descending one step from divinity, we find the scholar officials, men molded by ink, not steel. They begin their journeys as boys hunched over bamboo scrolls, memorizing lines of Confucius while their friends outside chase dragonflies. For decades they recite, repeat, rewrite. Their fingers grow calloused, not from plowing fields, but from holding brushes. Their eyes strained under candlelight, chasing the impossible, passing the imperial exams. Most never do. But those who succeed ascend into a world of robes and reverence. They quote poetry while measuring taxes. They speak in parables and metaphors. Yet their greatest power isn't their intellect. It's their proximity to the emperor. They are the scriptwriters of the empire, writing not just policy, but culture itself. Below them stand the peasants, the vast, sweating majority. If this empire were a body, they would be the muscle. Every grain of rice, every bolt of raw silk, every coin of taxed silver, all wrung from their blistered hands. Nurtured not by ambition, but by necessity. Their days begin before the sun, and end only when darkness forces them inside. They bow more than they speak. Their bodies bend under sacks of grain, under expectations, under the illusion that suffering is noble. They do not write history, they grow it. Next come the artisans, their hands stained with lacquer and ash. They are the silent creators, building everything from parasols to palaces, yet admired less than their creations. Their work travels across borders. Jade hairpins to Korea, porcelain vases to Europe. But their names are never carved into the woodwork. In a different era, they'd be called geniuses. Here, they're just laborers with a little flair. Now meet the merchants. Rich, sometimes. Respected? Never. In the society ruled by Confucian values, profit is suspicious. A man who makes money without sweating is seen as slippery. Merchants are tolerated, not honored. They build wealth, buy influence, marry their daughters into better families, and then pray their grandsons are born with less ambition. Because money buys silk, but not status. Then, at the very base, often unnamed in the scripts of history, come the invisible. Soldiers too poor to wield sharp swords, maids without surnames, butchers with blood beneath their fingernails, actors who speak for kings on stage but are spat on stage but are spat in the street. And lower still, if that's possible, are criminals and exiles, those who have defied the roles assigned to them. Each one a cautionary tale, each one a reminder. Stay in your lane. And now we turn to the women, the silent half of the cast. They are not even considered part of the official hierarchy, not even at the bottom. They exist around the system, like ghosts or decorations. Their worth is defined by their obedience, their fertility, their silence. Born into one home, sold into another, they are raised, not to ask, but to endure. Their world is stitched into embroidery hoops, into layers of robes, into the agonizing ritual of foot binding. Lotus feet, they call it. A poetic name for a practice that breaks bones and futures. A girl whose feet are small enough might marry up. A girl whose feet are too large, she becomes a burden, a reminder that even in suffering, there are standards. Among these women, The most visible are the concubines of the palace. Their job is not just to please, but to scheme. In the halls of the Forbidden City, beauty is a weapon, and childbearing is political currency. A single son can elevate a woman to power, or paint a target on her back. One misinterpreted poem, one unfortunate rumor, and she's out. Sometimes poisoned, sometimes worse. The emperor chooses them not with his heart, but with his lineage in mind. Love is a luxury no one can afford. And finally, the eunuchs. Once boys, now neither man nor woman, they are the empire's shadows, castrated for proximity, for promotion, for power. They whisper into royal ears, guard the treasury, manage the empress appointments. Some become more powerful than generals. All of them are a reminder. In this world, nothing comes without a price, not even a whisper. So the stage is now complete. The emperor with his celestial mandate, the scholars with their ink-stained dreams, the peasants with their bent backs, the artisans with their unrecognized skill, the merchants with money but no honor, the nameless multitudes scraping by in the margins, the women crushed between duty and silence, the eunuchs sacrificed for influence. Everyone has a role. Everyone is watching their step, because in Imperial China, the greatest crime is not failure. It's being seen where you shouldn't be. The curtain hasn't even risen yet, and already the stakes are life or death. Are you ready for Act 1? Act I begins before the sun even rises. You're a peasant, born to a life that's not yours to question. The morning air is wet and cold, clinging to your skin like a second layer of sorrow. You bow to your parents, your grandparents, to the ancestor tablet on the altar, 1, 2, 3 times. It's not just ritual. It's survived. Disrespect is not a personal offense. It's a cosmic disgrace. You lace your straw sandals with calloused fingers and step into the patties. The mud swallows your feet, warm and sucking, a constant reminder that the earth owns you. You work in silence, not because it's peaceful, but because there's nothing left to say. A whispered complaint could echo back to the village headman, and then to the magistrate. Grain taxes are due whether your crops grow or not. Your back bends like the bamboo in your basket, and when hunger pinches, you dream of meat. Just a sliver of pork, maybe. But that only comes if you're lucky enough to host a guest, or if someone dies. Meals are brief, bowls of watery congee with a hint of pickled vegetables, if you're lucky. The table isn't a place for laughter or debate. You sit facing the ancestral shrine, eating in silence. Even joy must be subdued. You've seen what happens when someone laughs too loud at the wrong time. By the time you're 10, you've already helped deliver a calf, buried a cousin lost to fever, and chased away thieves with a sickle. You've never been to a school, but you know to keep your eyes down and your mouth shut. One misstep, one wrong word, and your family could lose everything. Because here, guilt is collective. A child's mistake can curse generations. Still, you dream. Because hope, however foolish, is the only inheritance your parents left you. So your uncle sends you to the local schoolhouse, a dim corner of the village where a frail old tutor recites Confucian texts through a haze of incense and phlegm. This is where Act 2 begins. You are now a candidate, not for fame. Not for fortune, but for the single golden thread of salvation woven into this society, the imperial exams. You begin with the basics, memorizing the 4 books and 5 classics. By candlelight, you copy them over and over until the characters bleed into your dreams. Each phrase must be perfect, not just in meaning, but in calligraphy, in rhythm, in tone. If your brushstroke wavers, it's not just sloppy, it's sacrilegious. Years pass. Your friends become farmers. Your cousins marry. You remain unmarried, unlanded, living in the corner of your father's house with your inkstone and your ambition. Your family sacrifices, selling off jewelry, skipping meals. Because if you succeed, they succeed. If you pass the county exam, you're a shukai. If you pass the provincial one, a jurin. If you pass the capital level exam, you're a jinshi. And then, maybe, a minister. Maybe even closer to the throne. But for most, it ends in the exam cell, a tiny cubicle barely big enough to lie down in, where you squat for 3 days, urinate into a bucket, right until your fingers cramp. You are watched, not just for cheating, but for breaking. Men have died in those cells, from exhaustion, from despair, some even from ambition. Because to aim too high, to hope too much, is to risk a fall no one will catch. Let's say you pass. Let's pretend. Now you're a scholar official. You wear robes instead of rags. You speak in measured tones, quoting Mencius when discussing irrigation. You are sent to a province you've never seen to manage a district you don't understand. The people don't trust you. You don't trust your superiors. But you're part of the machine now. You bow deeper, speak softer, and file reports with the precise caution of a man balancing a blade on his tongue. You're invited to court. Act 3 begins. The palace is a labyrinth of silk screens and whispered threats. The emperor is both man and myth. You kneel, forehead touching cold stone, and wait for your turn to speak. Say too little, you're irrelevant. Say too much, you're seditious. Around you are other officials, some more clever, some more connected. And the eunuchs, always the eunuchs. Their smiles never reach their eyes, and their eyes are everywhere. They control access, guard secrets, carry poison and promotions in the same sleeve. At night, you sleep in your quarters with one ear open. You burn incense not to pray, but to mask the scent of fear. Letters from home take months to arrive, and when they do, they speak of droughts, of taxes, of sons who do not remember you. Your wife is now a figure in a painting, quiet, still, slipping away. You wonder if it was worth it, but wonder is dangerous. So you recite poetry aloud to remind yourself you're still cultured, still relevant, still breathing. Meanwhile, in the inner chambers, another drama unfolds. A concubine has caught the emperor's eye. Her rise is swift. Her fall will be swifter. She sends poisoned plums to her rivals, writes clever verses that hint at loyalty while hiding ambition. She wants a son. Everyone wants a son, because a son can change everything or ruin it. The court is not a place of love. It is a place of careful arithmetic. How much favor, how many allies, how close to the throne. The emperor listens to none, trusts no one, and sees everything. Or at least, that's the belief. In truth, he is tired. The world weighs heavily on men who are told they are divine. One miscalculation, and the mandate of heaven evaporates. The empire is stable, but only just. You, the peasant's son, the scholar, the official, now you understand. This isn't a ladder. It's a circle. No matter how far you rise, you're still kneeling, still bowing, still whispering into the wind, hoping no one hears the truth in your voice. And outside the palace walls, the people still bow to their ancestors, still eat in silence, still watch the clouds for signs from heaven. They don't know your name. They never will. That's the story. And it's only just begun. Act 2 doesn't arrive with a trumpet. It arrives with a whisper. One that curls through court corridors and village alleys alike. You've passed the exams. You wear official robes now. Your father weeps when he sees you in them. Not just from pride, but from relief. As if the gods have finally lifted a stone off your family's chest. You think you've made it. But no one tells you that power in this empire is not won by merit. It is navigated like a maze, dark and shifting. Your first posting is to a modest district. It's your job to administer taxes, resolve disputes, maintain order. But the books are cooked before you arrive. The landowners have old ties to the provincial governor. The clerks pretend to forget instructions. The peasants pleaded with you in trembling voices, offering vegetables they cannot afford to give. You try to be just. You quote Confucius. You believe in virtue. But virtue doesn't pay for roads. Virtue doesn't feed the soldiers. And virtue won't protect you when the governor sends a letter asking why revenue is down. You learn to smile and nod. You learn which festivals must be celebrated lavishly and which corners can be cut. You learn to ignore certain ledgers. And late at night, when the moon hangs low and the crickets fall silent, you wonder if you're any better than those who came before you. You tell yourself you are. You must be. Then one day a summons. The capital. You're called to attend a special ceremony. Perhaps an honor, perhaps a test. You arrive in the city where the streets shine like lacquered wood, and every building seems to whisper secrets. The forbidden city looms ahead, red walls like dried blood, roof tiles golden as judgment. Inside, nothing is as it seems. Words have layers, gestures carry weight. You bow too fast, ambition too slow, insult. You learn quickly. In the palace, everyone is performing. The scholars recite carefully rehearsed wisdom. The eunuchs smile like blades. The concubines float by, their sleeves hiding poison or poems. Depending on the day, you find allies, you find enemies. Sometimes they are the same person. A colleague invites you to tea. He jokes about rebellion, but his eyes search yours for agreement. Another praises your administration, but warns that too much honesty can be inconvenient. You are asked to oversee a grain shipment. You notice its light by several carts. You say nothing. That's what the silence buys you. Another year, another title. A little more time to breathe. And all the while, the emperor watches. Or so you think. He's rarely seen, but his presence is everywhere. In every scroll bearing the dragon seal. In every bow that makes your knees ache. You begin to dream of him. Always in silhouette. Always turning away. Then comes the twist. Act 3. Sudden and sharp, like a blade in the dark. You receive word from home. Your wife, your arranged, obedient, distant wife, has died. Illness, they say. Or perhaps punishment. She had written to you one too many times. A minor infraction, but enough. Your son is sent to live with your brother. You haven't seen him in years. You wonder if he knows your name. You return to court and find the rules have changed. Your patron has fallen from favor, accused of corruption or treason, or something else no one dares name. His house is sealed, his family imprisoned. You are told to remain silent. You are told you are never close. You burn the letters he once sent you. You forget how to grieve. In the hall of ministers, eyes slide past you. Doors close faster. You're summoned less. Then a poet is executed publicly for a metaphor deemed ambiguous. You read the poem. It was beautiful. It said nothing. Or everything. You start watching your own words, your own dreams. You speak less in meetings. You write more cautiously. Your reports are praised for their brevity. Your name fades from discussion, which is safer. Safer than attention. Safer than ambition. But safety is a myth. One night you are asked to sign a document. A simple formality, they say. Just a confirmation. You hesitate. Just for a sec. And that is enough. The eunuch's eyes flick toward you, then away. 3 days later, you're reassigned to a province known for bandits. A quiet exile wrapped in silk and ritual. You leave the capital without ceremony. No farewell banquet. No tribute poem. Just a scroll in the silence. The road back is long. Dusty. Your entourage is small, your guards inattentive. You wonder if they're there to protect you, or watch you. You wonder how long you have before someone decides your silence is no longer enough. And somewhere far from the capital, another young man finishes his exams. He holds his certificate like a sacred relic. His parents cry. He boards a boat, dreaming of justice. The cycle turns. Because in Imperial China, Act 3 doesn't end with applause. It ends with replacement. Your fall is not a tragedy. It's a footnote. The curtain does not drop. It simply moves to the next stage, and someone else bows into the spotlight, unaware that the script they've been handed is soaked in the blood of those who played their part too well. You believed, foolishly perhaps, that discipline would protect you, that obedience was a kind of armor, that if you memorized the texts, performed the rituals, kept your head bowed low enough, the storm would pass over you. But in Imperial China, the storm doesn't pass. It waits. It gathers. It listens. It begins with whispers, just sounds in the market, behind the walls of tea houses, under the rustling silk of sedan curtains. They say taxes are rising again. They say taxes are rising again. They say the granaries are empty. They say the emperor has not spoken in weeks. Then, one day, a man stands up in a rice field and refuses to kneel. His name doesn't matter. What matters is what he represents. A crack, a fracture in the divine mirror. And as all cracks do, it spreads. You hear of a rebellion. Small at first. A cluster of peasants in yellow headscarves claiming heaven has chosen a new messenger. They don't burn the Confucian texts. They reinterpret them. They don't hate the emperor. They say he has been misled, corrupted by greedy ministers and traitorous eunuchs. Their leader preaches with the passion of hunger, with the poetry of desperation. And people listen. Soon the yellow turbans are no longer a rumor. They are a force. Towns fall. Roads are blocked. You, a mid-level magistrate, are asked to deliver a speech to calm the people. You speak of harmony. You speak of loyalty. But your voice shakes, not from fear of the rebels, but from the silence that greets you. These people have nothing left to lose. In the capital, the court panics. Emergency meetings blur into endless arguments. Who should lead the suppression? Which general is loyal enough? Who can be trusted? Accusations fly like arrows. Eunuchs whisper into ears while concubines weep for sons who will now be sent to war. The emperor signs edicts by the dozen, each one a desperate gasp for control. Then the punishments begin. Public executions in marketplaces. Whole families dragged into the streets. One by one, rebels are caught and paraded through cities, beaten, humiliated, their heads shaved and branded. But it doesn't stop the tide. Because blood has never put out a fire, it only makes it burn hotter. Your turn comes. Not because you rebelled, but because you failed to stop rebellion. A rival accuses you of sympathetic leniency. They say your village was too quiet, your eyes too soft. One morning, a soldier arrives with a scroll sealed in red wax. You are to be investigated. You know what that means. Torture is not used to find truth. It is used to produce confession. You are led into a room where the floor is stained, where ropes dangle like spiders from the beams. The magistrate asks you if you were loyal. You say yes. He smiles and asks again. You confess, eventually. Everyone does. They break your fingers first, then your dignity. Your confession is recorded and rewritten in better calligraphy. It says you plotted with rebels, that you sent grain to insurgents, that you once doubted the emperor in a dream. You are sentenced to death. Not just you, but your wife, your children, even the uncle who once taught you how to hold a brush. But not all deaths are immediate. Some are symbolic. Lime tree. Death by 1,000 cuts is reserved for traitors. You are tied to a post. You feel the blade, precise and patient. The crowd watches. Some weep. Most just stare, silent. Because if they look away, someone might think they sympathize. And then they'll be next. Elsewhere, in another province, a different rebellion begins. This one is led by a mystic claiming divine visions, a white lotus blooming from his chest. He gathers orphans, widows, those left behind by war and hunger. The empire sends troops. The troops switch sides. not out of ideology, but out of exhaustion. The emperor dies. It's said his heart gave out. Others say he was poisoned by his own tea. The court says he ascended into the stars. A child takes the throne. Ministers rule in his name. Eunuchs battle for control. Nothing changes. The people continue to kneel. The betrayals ripple outward. What began as protest becomes legend. What was once a name becomes a cautionary tale. Your story is erased, rewritten, forgotten. Your legacy is not the words you wrote, but the warning you became. And still, the cycle turns. A new emperor rises, swearing to restore order. New scholars fill the exam halls. New peasants are born into mud. The fields are replanted. The foot-binding resumes. Silk is spun. Blood is spilled. This is the empire's genius. Its ability to endure not by avoiding collapse, but by absorbing it, by letting rebellions happen, burn bright, and then fade into ash. By convincing everyone that obedience is safety, even as it buries them alive, so the curtain doesn't fall. It simply resets. The stage remains. The actors change. And in the echoing silence of the palace halls, the past whispers, nothing was ever yours to begin with. So now you know. You've walked the fields with the peasants, their backs bent like old branches. You've sat in the flickering lamplight with the scholars, their minds sharp, their bodies brittle. You've whispered through silk screens in the imperial court, held your breath as eunuchs passed, and watched shadows move behind golden lattice. You've seen the promise of order and the price of it. Imperial China was magnificent. It was brutal. It was precise, efficient, and built to outlive anyone foolish enough to believe they mattered. But what does it leave us? Here in the present, with our soft beds and glowing screens, our coffee breaks and freedom of speech? What can you take from this story other than a shiver down your spine and gratitude that you weren't born in the wrong century? Maybe it's this. Greatness demands something. And often, it doesn't ask for consent. The Great Wall didn't rise from devotion. It rose from calloused hands and broken backs. The Forbidden City wasn't painted with reverence. It was painted with obedience. The exams didn't reward brilliance. They rewarded endurance. And the palace didn't protect. It consumed. The machine worked because most people didn't ask why it existed. They simply worked. They bowed. They stayed quiet. Until, of course, they didn't. And isn't that the twist? The irony? For all its rigidity, all its rules, all its polished rituals and carved stone laws, Imperial China was still built on something deeply human. Fear. Fear of heaven. Fear of dishonor. Fear of the emperor. Fear of being seen. Fear of being forgotten. In a place where your name might not outlive a spoon you made, where your face was less real than the calligraphy you copied, where your love, your rage, your dreams had to be tucked behind layers of protocol and poetry. What was left of you? You were a cog. You were a body. You were a whisper. You were expendable. But even that whisper mattered. The system needed your silence to survive. It needed your stillness to function. And every rebellion, every outlawed poem, every concubine who poisoned a rival, every merchant who climbed the social ladder against the odds, every single one of them proved that silence isn't natural. It's enforced. And so, we close with the joke. The dark, bitter joke that history likes to tell. That some of the most beautiful, awe-inspiring civilizations in the world were also some of the most merciless. That progress came with shackles. That elegance walked hand in hand with cruelty. That mandate of heaven was just branding for power. That the more perfect the system, the more cracks it hides. And then there's the wound. The one that lingers even now. A society that taught generation after generation that suffering was noble. That pain was hierarchy. That obedience was safety. It lingers because parts of it still exist, recycled in newer forms. Some of us still bow to systems we don't understand. still memorize rules we never chose, still measure our worth in the eyes of an invisible judge. We carry the echoes of Imperial China, not just in museums or textbooks, but in the parts of us that believe we must earn the right to rest, the right to speak, the right to matter. But the echo can also be broken. You, listener, are not a footnote in someone else's dynastic record. You're not born to serve a name you'll never know. You don't have to bind your dreams into tighter and tighter shapes until they fit inside the lines. You get to ask why. You get to write your own test and grade it yourself. So let this story lull you, haunt you, maybe even stir something in you. Not guilt, not fear, just recognition. That the past was real, but is not the only way. That endurance, while noble, is not the same as freedom. That control, no matter how golden the cage, still rusts from the inside out. And that no empire, no matter how divine it claims to be, is strong enough to silence everyone forever. And with that, dear listener, sleep if you can, dream if you must. Just don't dream too small. After all, even in Imperial China, people eventually stood up. And sometimes history listens, even if only for a moment.